Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sisto Says, powered by Design 2147, a New York City code consulting and expediting firm. Today, I have the privilege of having a good friend of mine, Kerry Zucker of ESKW Architects, to talk to us about building schools in New York City.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome aboard, Kerry.
Thank
so
you.
good to. We've been trying to get you on the show for a while.
I know.
And I appreciate you coming on. As a Brooklynite, I'm glad you made the trek to design here in Greenpoint to talk a little bit today about the ins and outs of designing a school in a New York City neighborhood. So tell us, how does it all start?
Well, we have been fortunate enough at ESKW Architects to work on several schools with New York City public schools with the New York City School Construction Authority.
Right.
That's what we're talking about here.
Right.
I just want to go back historically a little bit to how we started with the New York City School Construction Authority.
Sure.
Our first project was actually a partnership with Datner Architects.
Yes, and we've completed a lot. We've done a lot of schools with Datner over the years.
And we came to that project, which was in the Bronx New Settlement Community Campus, through one of our very long time affordable housing clients.
I was just going to say one of the sponsors.
So I feel like it's important to draw that connection between the affordable housing and the schools and how we got into it, because affordable housing is so important at ESKW and such a large part of our work. So we did that project with Datner, and then we went on to do PS 32K, which is in Brooklyn, and we just completed PS 108X in the Bronx, and now we're just about to start into the construction phase on PS 508Q in Long Island City.
Yeah.
In addition to doing a couple of 3Ks, which were adaptive reuse. So we've been doing this work for a fairly long time now, although it doesn't seem that long, but it's like...
In architecture, in architecture terms, it's long.
When you look back on it. It's a very interesting process with the SCA, and it's like you had, we'd been talking before we started, the process with the SCA is you're partnering with them for the entire process.
Correct.
So you start out in even you get the contract with them. It's pre-schematic. You're starting out pre-schematic. You offer to them several schemes that are then reviewed and gone over with a group at the SCA. A scheme is chosen, and then you're going through all of the typical phases of a design project, going through schematic design, design development, construction documents, and all the way through you are meeting regularly with the SCA. Not just there, they have an architecture engineering department, but also they have School Construction Authority, huge organization.
Yes.
First of all, they have over 1,400 schools that they are in control of, either working on or that they have in their portfolio. 1 million students in the system. It's huge. It's a huge system. So of course, huge system, huge organization, the SCA. Many people involved, many different departments who are providing input into the design of a school.
Right.
And that's one of the great parts about it, because when we're working with a housing client, there might be a nonprofit organization as our client, and we are working closely with them, but they're a small group.
Right.
At the SCA,
it's a large group.
It's the architecture engineering, the construction administration, the legal department, the
BCCD.
Right. Their building code compliance department. They have their own sort of technical department.
Correct.
And so you're getting all of this input through all phases of the design to create this project, and it's really just there's so much information there that they have with all of their experience that it's just it really is it's just a fascinating process to see all these different parts coming in and how that really impacts the design of the project.
Sure. And one of the things with the SCA is, because we're when we're on the RFPs with your team, we get to see the RFP, and the RFP talks about programming. It talks about volume of space. So for the audience, right? It's not like you get this clean palette, right? So you're going to do an affordable housing. They come to you and say, okay, well, the need is we need 80 units. We need social space, social workspace. We need community space. This is the programs. You know what, Kerry, go do this, right?
Right.
The SCA says, okay, here's the volume, here's the space, and here are the standards, right? And those standards talk about how big each classroom should be, how many students are allowed in the classroom. And you go through this, and then as an architect, right, you then have to take these standards and create this school. It's really an interesting process, because it's not just, okay, here's a piece of vacant land, go design a school.
Right. It
You know,
is
so
there.
tell us a little bit about how your office interacts with the design team at the SCA, and adhering to the program, adhering to the standards, yet being able to effectively put, your creativity into the school to make a great space for the kids.
Right. You're exactly right in that when you start the project, you are given the program, which is very prescribed. If it's a primary school, PS school,
Right.
It tells you and how many classrooms you need, what size they are, if you're having a gymnasium
Or
or a
multi-purpose,
gymatorium
right.
or a multi-purpose room, how big that is, and in addition to all of their design standards, which tell you what kind of exterior material choices you have,
Right.
what kind of interior finishes you're allowed to have, what kind of lighting you may have through their standards, so it's within those standards and that framework. I think that's one of the challenges that we like, and it's similar, though maybe not as the standards are not as there's not as many standards in the affordable housing, but there are,
Right.
but that's the challenge of it. How do you work within these constraints to create something special,
Right.
and I think it's really, it seems like a limitation, but I think it's actually, in a way, it's more satisfying to work in this way than just being given like carte blanche, like do whatever you want.
Right.
It's like how can you maneuver to get what your what our design priorities might be, what we think is the best, some of the best moves for the project within that framework. And so it's, there's, I don't want to say there's a lot of negotiating, but there is some negotiating.
Of course there is.
Yeah.
They're still the owner, right? And they want these standards, but yet they're open enough that your creativity is negotiable, that
Right.
it's not, okay, no, we're only going to have this. No, you have a choice. And part of that choice is, if you pick this for the auditorium and you pick this material, but then you may have to do a different material in the hallways because you still got to come in on budget. So it's not like unlimited. Okay, Kerry, the budget is $1,100 a square foot to build a school, but by the way, we like you, so you know what, you get $1,600.
Right,
It doesn't
nothing
work
under
that
that.
way.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But
yeah.
one of the things that you had mentioned before you came on the show, just so that I'm open, we do have conversations before the show to talk about the points we want to hit. And I think you made an incredible point that I know, working for the SCA for 30 years, I never realized it the way you explained it. And that is, it doesn't matter where you are in New York City, the standards for every school are the same. So you could be in Midtown Manhattan, you could be in Howard Beach, you could be in Long Island City, where we're doing a current project with you, or you can be on the Upper West Side. The standards are the same, and every child will get the standards of New York City, and an architect who can use those standards and create the greatest environment for them. So I think that was a point. So tell us a little bit about that, and how you brought that to me I think is because of your passion for being an architect and understanding that the city has created this fair and equal opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I think just like you described, that's one of the beauties of doing a public school in New York is that the buildings are they're built to last for 100 years. They are the SCA in that their organization, they are kind of they're pushing the envelope for sustainability and innovation, and they want to make the best environment for every child who's going to school. And so it's really it's really just a great it's just a great benefit that every school gets built to these very high standards. And that these schools are like, just going back to our housing a little bit, these are like community, these are like civic moments.
Of course they
these
are, no
like,
doubt.
it's a huge impact to the community when there's a new school there. So it really it's just wonderful that it can be built to such high standards.
Back in the day, 30 years ago, when I was doing SCA work, I'll always remember the day we would get the TCO, a couple of days before school opened. And I would run back to the job site, and I'd go into the trailer of whoever the SCA was on one side and the contractor was on the other, and they worked there. And I always remember bringing the document and how proud the people who built it were. And I cannot explain the joy and the anticipation of opening those doors for those teachers and those kids to come in a couple of days later. And when Kimberly, you're one of the managing partners at ESKW, she came in and we talked about housing and how design loves working with your firm, because it's not just the work that we do, but it's having this feeling that we're part of the community, that we're providing these apartments for people that need them, providing schools that we need. And we do so many different types of community facilities. It's not just housing, it's not just schools. We've worked on so many different things. And it's all about the community. So as an architect, when you get to design these buildings, and we get to help you, through the code and the zoning stuff, is that there's an appreciation that we're doing something good. And so tell us a little bit about that when you meet with the SCA and their visions that a community could wait years and years and years for a school to just get on the radar, never mind get built. So tell us a little bit about that process, that once you get this RFP and you're awarded the job, who do you meet with? How do you start to get the vibe of that school?
Yeah, well, oftentimes, or most of the time, there's not the school administration, that particular school administration, if it's a new school or if it's an existing school that is having it, like if we have worked on projects that are existing schools and then they have additions onto them. And even in that case, it sometimes happens that the school is kind of changing over in administration. So you don't always, and if it's a brand new building like PS 508Q, you don't necessarily get interaction with the administration of the school.
All. It's strictly through the SCA.
Through the SCA, yeah. So we've had, in all of our projects at various times, we've had some interaction with administration, but then the administration of the school changed, like the principal changed, or so it's not a sure thing that you're going to be guided in some way by the school administration. You're really being guided by the SCA, right? And A&E, the Architecture and Engineering Department, certainly. Like we are. A&E is our client,
of course,
from ESKW, right?
Yeah,
but
our client too,
right? but there's all of the other departments at the SCA who are also guiding you for constructability. That's like a big part of the big part of the process is these buildings have to get built and they have to get built efficiently and in the time frame that
the time frames are tough.
Yeah, that they were meant to be built because, like we were talking about earlier, they've committed to providing seats to the community.
And the school has to open the first week of September.
Right. They have a hard deadline.
Right.
Right. So I think that's why all of these departments come together, because it's complex, and it's
without a doubt.
and when you have that drop dead deadline, that you have to open the school, it takes there are so many considerations you have to be making to ensure that it happens.
Correct.
And so I think that's why, while it seems like, we would, pre-COVID, we had in-person meetings with the SCA.
Correct. And then now it's...
Right, now it's online. It's almost the same, but when you were you would go to the SCA and you'd be in a huge conference room, and there would be 40 people there,
Yes.
and there would be representation from all of these departments, and they would have input,
Sure.
and it was very valuable. We would be presenting our project, whatever stage it was in the design phase, and these are people with
lots of experience.
Decades of experience.
I was just about to say that.
They've gone through in different departments in the SCA, and then there are newer people that have come in who are bringing their own experience from
Correct.
other places where they've been previously, and so it's a lot of valuable input from the SCA. It's really we partner with them.
Right.
We don't we're just like Andrew, one of the other partners,
Right.
often tells me, what's our job? Our job is to serve the client.
Correct.
Our job, yes, we're going to make a beautiful building that, works for the program, but it's we're serving the client. So
Right.
what do they need? And that's what we do in this process with the SCA. What do you guys need? We know your standards, but we want your input as we're going through this,
Right.
So it's it's a collaborative process.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
So one of the things that that's interesting is that during construction, the architect does have a big role with the SCA, because there's construction administration, right? And there's things that are happening on the fly, that what was drawn, what's shown, coordination, changes. Oh boy, we thought this was going to do this, but we're not happy with it. Can we do this on the fly? Can we change this? And, as you know, one of the things there with the SCA is that they issue, direction, and you got to do it. And so there's a lot of moving parts. But one thing that I always admired about the SCA is that they're very pro-law. They're very much about the community. They're very much about, picking the proper code, making sure we can adhere to it, making sure that there are no shortcuts with it. And I've always have been very fond of dealing with their BCCD department and having knowledgeable people there, and really, not just going through the drawings, as a matter of fact, but
Right.
but digging into the documents and making sure that what we present, and listening to our argument, because sometimes the way we see it is not the way they see it, but they'll work with us, and not just no, it's no, but let's see how, if this is what you really want to achieve, does Kerry really want to have this piece of glass in this corridor? How can we help her to keep that in her design? And they will work with us in a million different ways, but if it can't be done, they're going to flat out say, hey, Kerry, we tried, but I'm sorry, right? Whereas with the building department, sometimes you really don't get that. And I have to say, in my opinion, I think the SCA does a great job with that.
Yeah, I agree that that's one of the real advantages to working with the SCA, is that access to the building code compliance department. So the process, you meet with the BCC, as they're known,
Yep.
very early on in the process, to talk about your filing strategy and to go through any kind of maybe unique aspects of the projects that might impact the filing.
And every one of those old schools has some uniqueness to them.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, it's never like, oh, okay, here it is. We got a piece of land. Just put this addition on it, and we're good to go. Okay, here's a vacant piece of land. Just put a school on. we've always we have licensing issues, we have existing
Yep.
sewers, we have old manholes, we start digging and we find, they got this site through eminent domain. There's all kinds of stuff that was
Yeah.
never documented. And here we are. They didn't say, okay, it's not documented, Kerry, you got another 6 months to, we need to figure this out
figure it out
because we
now,
still
yeah.
got to finish in September of, 2028.
Exactly, Yeah, and that's why I think they're very proactive about working with the architects during the design phase to really, make sure you're addressing these items that could really be problematic later on when you're down the line in the design phase. And there are so many unique aspects. The project we're doing now, there's a zoning agreement with the neighbor, and it's like, so there's a lot to consider.
Sure.
That the BCC is like, it's crucial,
Well, yeah,
It's
and it's cutting up of the tax lots. It's Zelda agreements.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of moving parts, and they're also a city agency.
Right.
Which that doesn't make it easy.
No.
Because in the private world you can do things because it's private, but in the city there's all these other rules and other charters and other things that they need to adhere to.
Right.
So I always ask the question: what do you enjoy the most about it?
I mean, I just it's very satisfying, like you were saying, when it's done, to see the kids use the school. And this was really kind of hit home for me, because the first school that I worked on from beginning to the very end was this PS32K in Brooklyn. It happened to be in my neighborhood that I lived in.
How are you going to beat that?
And it was completed actually during COVID. We got the TCO in 2020. And so kids didn't go into it immediately. And so it was like,
that's so disheartening.
like we've just been working on this for so long, and then the kids aren't in the school, but then to see the kids go back to the school when they finally did go back, it was just
awesome. And there's an excitement in their face going into a new school.
Yeah.
Besides the fact they're going to a new school, but they're going into a brand new
building that
space.
Nobody's ever been in before.
Right. To give an example of that, my two children that now are in their 30s and 20s, they went to a private parochial school in the neighborhood in Connecticut. And my youngest son didn't want to go to parochial school. He wanted to go to a vocational school. And they had just built, the state, not even the city of Stamford, the state of Connecticut built this school in downtown Stamford. State of the art. And when my older kids went to open house with my son, because he was doing carpentry, they were amazed at how beautiful it was. And yet, when you look at it as an architect, it flowed great. It wasn't over the top with the materials. A lot of exposed concrete block, a lot of exposed beams that were painted, but just so well done. And the amount of kids that applied to that school was, at the beginning, my son was one of the first. He was graduated the second year it was open. So he was there for 4 years, but he was the second graduating class. By the time he graduated, there was a waiting list for kids to get there. So you knew the state and the city had done their job. And I think that's something that the SCA doesn't get enough credit for, which is partnering with your local community board and the state and the city to build these schools is, kudos to them, because there's a lot going on. Getting the property, hiring the engineers, hiring the architects, getting it off the ground, committing to these dates, and going from start to finish.
Yeah. It's a big, hard job that they're doing.
Without a doubt.
And I mean, that's just one of the other aspects of it is the community relations person, so on every project from the very beginning, there's somebody who's representing the SCA for the project, talking to the community, and all through the construction phase. And it's just it's so important. If you don't have the community with you,
And there's
it's
so many
impossible,
disruptions.
so,
They're
yeah.
building the building. They're working at night. They're bringing trucks down the street. You know, there's a lot of effort and there's a lot of pain that goes into building the school for those 2 years or,
Yeah.
36 months that they're building it, digging holes and moving dirt and dust and this
Yeah.
and that and neighbors and, it's,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. So, here we are. You're on this new project. Tell us a little bit about where you are in the phase right now. What part of the design phase or construction administration phase are we in?
Well, we've completed the design phase, and in fact, we are technically starting the construction phase. We have a kickoff meeting tomorrow. So that's starting.
Have they awarded the project?
They have.
And
yeah.
who's the contractor?
It's Sinolta Construction.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
Awesome.
who we worked with on the
Yeah,
school.
I did a lot of work with Mike from Sinolta.
Oh.
They're great people.
Yeah.
What's his name? Tony Rubino.
I talk to Tony every other week.
I know Tony for 30
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I always tease him. I said, Tony, are you going to be like part of the landmark? Because, you've been around longer than me building schools, so they're going to make you a landmark.
Yeah.
But Tony's great people.
Yeah. So we're excited because we worked with them on this PS 32K in Brooklyn.
Correct.
So we'll be working with them again. This site is very unique because there's an existing building on it right now, and it's only being partially demolished.
Oh, wow.
And so we're saving the foundation and we're building the new school on top of the existing foundation. And this has
That's a new thing for the SCA.
it's not the first time they've done it, actually.
But that's not usually the norm.
It's not the norm, but this very unique site, like I think I was explaining how there's a zoning agreement, there's a new 66-story residential tower that's on our zoning lot. And we are next to the elevated 7 line.
Yep.
There's an underground line that's going underground,
Yep,
like across
the G
the street.
train. Yeah, the G and the L and
We
the
have
7.
the 7, and I forget what's going on.
I think it's the G.
Yeah, but it is, so they're in the process of removing most of the existing building, but down to the foundation and keeping some of the framing at the first floor. And so that's in process right now, but the new building contractor, Sinolta, is coming on to start construction administration activities, submittals and things like that, which they'll
Nice.
start now, even though they won't be going to the site for, until the other building is, till the existing building is.
So you're
partially
deep into
demolished.
it.
We're deep into it.
Great.
Yeah.
And when's
yeah.
the estimated time of completion?
The TCO is for 2028.
Well, it's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I think.
So
Check that.
if they're starting today.
Yeah.
They got 3 years. It
Yeah.
sounds like a long time, but
It's not.
It's not. And how big is the school?
I have to refer to my notes.
Of
for
course.
that. This one it's 6 stories. 90,000 square feet is what we have here. Yeah, 90,000 square feet.
That's a good size school.
Yeah. And it's 6 stories because we had they typically they do not like to build that tall for a
Right.
school, particularly for an elementary school. But we had a limited site.
Right.
We have we have a rooftop playground because
Yep.
we're really working within the constraints of the footprint of this existing
Well,
building.
because
Yeah.
they're building a 66,000.
Yeah.
A 66-story building.
So we're excited to get started on this because it's unique for us in that it's not in addition. Our
Right.
other schools, except for that new settlement community campus, which was a community center and a brand new school, but after that, our subsequent SCA projects were additions, and now this is another kind of new building, although it's an addition kind of too.
Yeah.
But
Just
it's-
redefined it differently.
yeah.
Well, I could tell you that I went to Brooklyn Tech and it was 10 stories.
Oh my God,
And
that's huge.
10 stories, it was huge. And the only way you could use the elevator is if you had a doctor's note. So
Wow.
you talk about scrambling, going from one end. I mean, we had 6,000 kids in the school.
I know, it's so
it was
big.
massive.
Yeah.
Massive, but it's iconic. It
Yeah.
really is an iconic building. So as we wrap up the show, Kerry, we always talk about a dear friend of mine, Andrew Peters from Curry and Brown. He's an estimator. He's on one of my very first guests, and he talked about in the estimating world, he needs to tell the SCA how much that building is going to cost before they even put a piece of pen to paper. And he always says that there's a reason the rear view mirror is really small, because we got to look in the windshield and it's bigger, and we got to look forward, not behind us. So I always end the show with a general question, and it's never to stump anyone. But so going forward, since you've done a couple of schools, what do you think the biggest change is going to be in the standards and the design as we go forward into the later years of 2028, 2030? What do you see down the pipe that's changed, or that you think they're going to implement in terms of design?
I think it's sustainability. I mean, they are already, the SCA is already, they are ahead of the market in terms of sustainability, right? But I think always sustainability advances, technology advances in building, and then also just technology for the school, but yeah, I think definitely sustainability, and they're really, they've moved obviously all electric. Their schools are all electric, but I think
gas was always a problem for us.
Right, and
gas was always a problem.
Certainly don't want to get involved in that.
Yeah. And then you got gas with the kids in the school, and testing it, and it was always blocking it, bracing it properly. It was always the roof was a major issue for us, always, especially when we were ready to TCO it.
Yeah, so I really think, and then resiliency too. So that's the other, big, that change, just responding to the real needs to have a resilient building. That's kind of what I see, I think.
No, I love the answer.
Yeah, so.
I love the answer.
Yeah, so I think that's what's ahead of us. And, it's the good thing is working with this group is they have people who are constantly, developing standards to meet these needs as things are changing.
When I first started we were doing modulars because we couldn't build them fast enough. We were putting additions on. They would pour the foundation, and I would go to Easton, New Jersey, someplace in Pennsylvania. I forgot the name of the town, where we would go to visit them building the boxes. And then once the boxes got here, we'd put the brick up. They had controlled inspectors there at the site, and they had all the plumbing in it, everything, and they sent union workers there and prevailing wage workers there on site while they were building the boxes. It was and then they realized it wasn't cost effective, but cost effective wasn't the issue. It was the speed that was the problem.
Yeah.
They needed them that quickly, where now I think the demographics, they're able to understand it better, but again, we're still way short.
Yeah.
We're still way short. They can't get the properties fast enough.
I know.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not that they can't build them. It's they can't acquire the properties in the neighborhoods. Like you said, they got to negotiate with a developer who's building a 66-story building to say, hey, we need 90,000 square feet of FAR that you got left over that you're not using. Can you give it to us? It's not that easy.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the same challenge as the housing projects too. It's
my God, housing
it's just so hard. It's just it's hard to find sites.
Not to change topics, but we'll end on this topic. I'm always intrigued on these non-for-profits that are building this housing, right? And how someone will leave them a piece of property. Many times there's someone who feels that this community has done a great thing. They have a piece of property and they'll leave it to them. And then they go and they try to buy the property next door so they can accumulate a site to build a building. And they were explaining to me that to get through the state and the government, to get funding, it takes years. To me, you would think that because it's such a great program that there would be this, but because of it being funded by the government and acquiring it and changing the deeds and doing all these things that, sometimes it takes us a year and a half, to build the building, but it takes us 5 years to get the site.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is one of the, like, with the SCA actually, working on the affordable housing and the public schools, the public housing, as I'm sure Kimberly said, and everybody you know very well, that the funding could change over the course of the project multiple times.
Right, but at least with the SCA, it's
Right,
there.
it's there. It's like, you know, like
It's
this is,
allocated
like,
and that's
we're right. We're doing this project with the SCA, and you know, we think it's going to happen.
Right.
So
Well, the you know, and we'll end this in a joking manner, is that it's a privilege to do these schools, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to did we make any money, it's not easy. There's a lot of effort and a lot of time that goes into these projects, and balancing that is not easy. It's not easy. But when you're done, there's the feeling of this social greatness.
Yeah.
That we're going to provide something for these kids for maybe 6 years that they're there, maybe 4 years that they're there, or maybe, you know, today, maybe 8 years, K to 8, you know.
Right, yeah.
So that's a long time for a child to use something that we have our fingerprint
yeah,
on.
we've made a contribution to our community, and like I said, I live and I work here. This is my community.
This is our home.
Yeah, so
Well, Kerry, this was great. I'm so
you.
glad you made the effort to come.
Thank you for having me.
You are now number 2 from ESKW,
who will be next?
and we will have we're gonna get Carrie on next.
Oh, I'll let her know.
Yeah, she might be in for a surprise, but we'll
Yeah.
get her on the show. But an absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.